रहुगुणैत तपसा न याति नाचेज्जया निर्वपनाद् गृहाद्वा न छन्दसा नैव जलाग्निसूर्यैर्विना महत्पादरजोऽभिषेकम्. Read the translation.
My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy, brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of household life, leaving home as a vanaprastha, accepting sannyasa, or undergoing severe penances in winter, by keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who had attained the mercy of a great Guru.
Without bathing in the dust from the feet of great devotees, Vinam Hatpada Rajobhishekam, one cannot realize the Lord. Na etad vetyati. Etad means the one who is described in the previous verse. Who is the Lord? Lord is Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He is Shuddha, Prashanta. Different attributes are there, na? Jnanam, Vishuddham, Paramartham, Ekam, Anantaram, and Abahir, Brahma, Satyam, Pratyak, Prashantam. So, like all the attributes. That person can only be destroyed, realized by one who bathes in the dust of great devotees. One cannot realize the Lord through concentration of mind. Just by concentration on the mind, no. Tapasa, no. Performance of sacrifice, no. Distributing food, no. Building shelters for the destitute, Grihadva. Building satras, etc., no. Studying the Vedas, no. Performing austerities in the water, in the fire, in the sun, no, no, no. But only by the bathing in the dust of the great devotees.
See, after translation,
अलग ही रहेगा, अलग नहीं रहेगा तो क्यों अलग पढ़ेंगे हम? Same only. This is bad. No, all translations are from Chakravartipad. Because these slides are made by our नाम क्या है? बलराम शक्ति ग्रुप. मतलब shloka translations are made by Anvaya. That taking the translation and putting this shloka words in between. That is made by Balaram Shakti Group. And I added the notes below. Okay. Prabhupada gives purports in the translation only.
Because VCT commentary also does not exactly replicate like this. With the meaning and then in the bracket for everything, it is not like this.
No, he added it. Prabhuji added it.
Based on?
वही translation ऊपर श्लोका है. What is the word meaning in that way? So that you will understand which part of the shloka you are reading. It is easy for us to relate to the shloka. Jala Agni Surya. Prabhupada says that submerging in the water during winter and putting fire around during summer and performing severe austerities under the sun and also exposed to tapatre. निकालो कैप निकालो जाके ठंडी पानी में नालो. It's like that. One cannot attain the Lord without bhakti attained by the mercy of devotees. This is explained in 2 verses. We cannot attain the Lord by any other endeavor. We can attain by bhakti. Bhakti amma vijanati. But how do we attain bhakti? Bhakti comes from the devotees of the Lord. And what do you, all of you are experts? O King Rahuguna, The three types of realization just mentioned cannot be attained by tapas or other methods. Tapas means concentration of the mind. Ijja means Vedic activities such as sacrifices. Nirvapanad means giving food in charity. Such kind of things does not avoid realization of the God. All these things will give one piety, will give one sukruti, or will give one good merits, but not realization of the Lord. Realization of the Lord comes only by Bhaktyatu Ananya Sakya. Viduru Evo Arjuna. 11th chapter, 54th verse. No, don't open. Grihat means establishing shelters for helping others, for constructing satrams, etc. in holy places, pilgrimage places. Chandasa means by studying of the Vedas. Jalagni Surya means by performing austerities involving water, fire, and sun. So it's like that. Yatrottama shloka gunanuvada prastruyate gramya kata vighata nisevyamano nudinam mukshor matim satim yachati vasudeve.
Who are the pure devotees mentioned here? In an assembly of pure devotees, there is no question of discussing material subjects like politics and sociology. In an assembly of pure devotees, there is discussion only of the qualities, forms, and the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is praised and worshipped with full attention. In the association of pure devotees, by constantly hearing such topics respectfully, even a person who wants to merge into the existence of the Absolute Truth abandons this idea and gradually becomes attached to the source of cosmos.
Where there are great devotees, talks concerning the qualities of the Lord, which destroy material topics, are sung. Wherever great devotees are there, they always discuss Krishna Katha. Matchita Madgata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam Katayantasya Mam Nityam Tamancha Parasparanu Katanam Pavanam Bhagavat Yasha Mito Ratir Mito Triptir Nivritta Mita Atmana. This verse comes in the 11th canto. Devotees, those who discuss Krishna Katha continuously are called devotees. Those who discuss Gramya Katha continuously are called devotees. Okay. Heard constantly, even by those desiring liberation, those topics produce pure thoughts of Lord Vasudeva. Vasudeve Satim Mati. The devotees of Lord Krishna are described. Where one bathes in the dust of their feet, or where there are great devotees, the qualities of the Lord, such as his affectionate nature, are repeatedly glorified. What do you mean by bathing in the dust of the lotus feet of devotees? Hearing from them and then applying them in one's day-to-day life. Hearing Krishna Katha and following the respective do's and don'ts. So that means bathing with the dust of the devotees. Even those desiring liberation listen Krishna Katha. Atma Ramascha Munayo Tapi Urukrame Kurvanti Ahetukim Bhaktim Ittam Bhuta. Even Atma Ramas also hear Krishna Katha because Lord's qualities are so attractive. After hearing, they forget meditation and then start Ahetuki Bhakti. These talks produce pure thoughts of Lord Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, without the desire for liberation. They forget the desire for liberation. They become attracted to Lord Vasudeva so much. So it's like that. This will take place in the association of devotees. What was the verse from teachings of Lord Kapila? Satam prasangam mamavirya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana kata tajjoshanad ashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhakti anukramishati. Shraddha means nishtha ruchi, rati means asakti bhava, bhakti means prema. All those things will manifest eventually. When one hears Krishna Katha from Satam Prasangam Mamavira Samito. Prasanga. Sangha means devotee association. Prasanga means association of devotees who are of high caliber. So exalted devotees. So from them. So it is like that. This is the solution which our Brahmana Bharata is giving to. The only solution to attain perfection is bathing in the dust of great devotees. What is the meaning of bathing? Hearing about Krishna from the mouth of great devotees. Then he also said, I don't know who you are. You may be who you are, you may be. Please accept my obeisances. You seems to be the Karana Janmi. So then now he reveals his identity. Aham pura bharato nama raja vimukta drishta sangha bandha आराधनम भगवता इहमान मृगो भवम मृग मृग संगाद ततार्ता.
The previous birth I was known as Maharaj Bharata.
Louder.
I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience and through indirect experience. I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, but due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer.
Yeah. Previously, I was a king named Bharata, who was free of attachment to all material dealings. Vimukta Sangabandha. Seen or heard. Drishta Shruta. Seen means the enjoyment of this world. Heard means the enjoyment of in the next world in the heaven. So in that way. I worshipped the Lord, having gone to forest after taking Vanaprastha. But from association with a deer, I was thwarted in my goal and became a deer. The first chapter summary is giving. I was a king Bharata, son of Lord Rishabdev. I ruled very nicely. I worshipped the Supreme Lord by performing yajna after yajna. Then I attained attachment for the Lord. I took renunciation, went to forest, and began to perform worship the Lord. By the way, I became attached to a deer. As a result, I became a deer. Who are you? So merciful to give teachings and knowledge to a great offender like me? This verse answers. I was freed from the bondage of attachment to dealings of this world, seen and heard. By misfortune, I became inattentive. And hence, I became a deer. After becoming deer, what did I do? Saman smrutir mrugadehe pivira Krishnarchana prabhava no jahati ato aham janasangat asango Vishankamano Vivrutas Charami.
My dear heroic king, due to my past sincere service to the Lord, I could remember everything of my past life, even while in the body of a deer. Because I am aware of the fall down in my past life, I always keep myself separate from the association of ordinary men. Being afraid of their bad materialistic association, I wandered alone, unnoticed by others.
O King Rahugana, in the body of a deer, my memory by the power of my previous worship of Lord Krishna did not leave me. Fearing material association, I wander about alone incognito. So though I became a deer, but by previous bhakti, by Lord's mercy, I could remember everything that happened in the past. After becoming deer, I did not associate with deers. Instead, I associated with the sages. Then I left the deer body. I born in the family of a Brahmanas. Even there also I did not associate with the Brahmanas. I wandering alone. So like that, he is kind of telling his past story. His worship of Lord Krishna, though failing in the last life, saves him. Fearing material association, I wander about unknown. Avivruta. Now, fearing material association, I am wandering alone. So then he says that Tasman Naro Sangha Susanga Jata Jnana Sinehaiva Vivrukna Mohan Harim Tadiha Katana Shrutabhyam Labda Smrutiryati Atiparamadvana.
Simply by associating with exalted devotees, anyone can attain perfection of knowledge, and with the sword of knowledge can cut to pieces the illusory associations within this material world. Through the association of devotees, one can engage in the service of the Lord by hearing and chanting. Thus, one can revive his dormant Krishna consciousness and, sticking to the cultivation of Krishna consciousness, return home back to Godhead even in this life.
Cutting up illusion, Vivrukna Moha, by the sword of knowledge, Jnanasina, arising from detachment from matter and attachment to devotees. Asanga Susanga Jata, Asanga from matter, Susanga from devotees. And gaining remembrance of the Lord, Labda Smritir, by speaking about and hearing about Katana Strutabhyam, the pastimes of the Lord. A person attains the Lord at the end of samsara, advanaha. You remember 15th chapter, text number 3 and 4? Tell me what is that? Asanga shastrena drudina chitva comes there. Narupa masteha tatopalabhyate nanto nachade nachasam pratishta. Ashwattamenam suviruda moolam asanga shastrena drudina chitva. Tata padam tat parimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuya. Tameva chadyam prastapurani Tameva chadyam purusham prapanna Yasmin Gatana Nivartanti Bhuya. Something like that. So it's like that. Asanga Shasrena Drudena Chitva. We have to use the weapon of detachment. Asanga Shasra. Here, Asanga is there, Susanga is there. Weapon of detachment to matter, weapon of attachment to devotees. That is the weapon. Double weapon. So with that, one can cut the tree of samsara. Asanga means detachment from material things. Susanga means attachment to devotees. By these two, one gains knowledge, which is a sword. That knowledge acts as a sword to cut the tree of samsara. With the sword, a person cuts illusion in the form of an elephant and attains the Lord at the end of samsara. Here, illusion is compared to an elephant because the elephant is very strong and stout. So, for that reason. So, it is like that. This is what our Brahmana Bharata is giving the solution for one to get out of this material world. Okay? Any questions?
Till now, most of the verses and instructions to King Raghuna were on how mind is actually the cause of everything. And then later, Bharata was actually speaking about the Lord, and then he was actually speaking about the importance of the devotee. Is this the conclusion of the section?
In one sense, it is over. Now, next, there is the allegorical story. Like Puranjana story, there is another story like a merchant story is there.
And in that case,
that is like a story thing. That is like explaining through analogy. But this is like conclusion. The discussion is almost over.
Then it is concluding with that is the mind the whole solution of the whole.
Not like that. The problem started with the king Rahuguna thinking himself to be the king and is engaging people in service. For him, he's understanding that this is the material world, it is reality, and I am the king, and everyone is subjects, and I am supposed to take care of them, they're supposed to serve me. So here he is on the liberated platform. He's telling that what you are thinking is reality is not the reality. The actual reality is absolute truth, which is Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan, which can be understood only by the mercy of devotees, in the association of devotees. There is no other way. You think you are a king, by doing your kingly duties, you can attain perfection, but that is not the case. Whether you may be king or servant, both will attain perfection only by the mercy of devotees. By the mercy of devotees, one gets bhakti. By the practice of bhakti, one gets the realization of Bhagavan. Then only one will go back to got it. That is ultimately he says that the material world with which you are identifying with is not the ultimate reality. All the way up to atoms. The combination of atoms comes in the form of earth. The earth transforms in the form of human body, the palanquin and other things. These are all not realities. Because with this body only you are identifying yourself as a king. Body nahi rahega to? Body real nahi rahega to? Body identification is not real. So in order to, this is spoken like that because he wanted to bring the detachment, strong detachment, not ordinary detachment. Very strong detachment. For that only speaks this philosophy.
Gnani also. That's
Yeah, of course, this is a Jnani philosophy, but devotees also should have the detachment. Not only Jnanis. Anyone who want to attain perfection.
In our case, since in the Siddhanta of our case, so mostly we emphasize on the connecting the things. Having
Connecting things, Yukta Vairagya. In the name of Yukta Vairagya, what we are doing, we only know. Others don't know.
No, not in that sense. Our philosophy is mostly to actually see or use a perspective that how to connect this or how to see any material thing in connection with Krishna.
Yes.
Not to actually see it as separate from Krishna.
Yes.
But when we hear the Gnani sections, it's mostly that the different aspect, that the disconnection aspect with the Lord is more emphasized. Whereas in the Vaishnava Siddhanta, we see it as the energy of the Lord in connection with the Lord. That is more emphasized. Rather than the disconnection part, we actually emphasize more on the connection part.
Yes, that is true. I'm not denying that. But some sections of the Bhagavatam only talking about it like this. So this is also meant for devotees. That is also required. There is a need of this kind of tinge also.
So at what stage this will be required? What stage that should be applied?
At every stage. Every stage. So this one should be kept inside the heart. That this matter is temporary. And externally, every matter should be engaged in service of Supreme Lord. So in that way. Bhakti and everything connected to Bhakti is all real. The remaining all should be treated as illusory. So in that way. Without attachment. आपका कुछ प्रश्न है? नहीं? So this is their last chapter of conversation. The forest of material enjoyment. In the 13th chapter, by describing the forest of material world, Bharata put the king on the horse of detachment so that the king will cross over it. The last verse of the previous chapter mentioned crossing over the material life. What is that path? And what is the traveler on that path? Who is the traveler on that path? This chapter answer. Because in the last verse, he said that cutting the illusion by the sword of knowledge arising from detachment from matter and attachment to devotees, and gaining remembrance of the Lord by speaking about him and hearing about the pastimes of the Lord, a person attains the Lord at the end of samsara. So the last verse mentioned that crossing over material world, crossing over samsara. So what is the path by which one can cross the samsara, and who is the person crosses the samsara? So taking that as a clue, he further narrates with a allegorical story. How to cross over the material existence, samsara. There are two things. Asanga, susanga, jata. There should be some detachment, there should be some attachment. How these two supposed to be cultivated? That will be mentioned in the next chapter. So whatever mentioned in the 13th chapter, text number 1 to 19, will be explained in the text chapter 14, text number 1 to 41. Then Parikshit Maharaj asks, so my dear sir, you said some story. I don't know what Raghuna understood, but have not understood properly. Please explain the meaning of that story. The meaning will be explained by Sukadeva Goswami in chapter 14, text number 1 to 41. Just like the Puranjana story also, it is mentioned in many chapters. 29th chapter, the meaning is explained. Same way. And then final instructions in the 20th verse, 21 to 23 Rahuguna realizations and gratitude, 24-25 satisfaction of Jada Bharata and Rahuguna, questions by Parikshit Maharaj to give direct meaning of the allegorical story. And the next chapter gives the meaning of that allegorical story. Brahmana uvacha Duratyayedvani Ajayani Vishto Rajas Samasta Swabhibhakta Karma Drug Sayesha Sartorta Para Paribhraman Bhavat Bhavat Bhavata Vimyatinas Sharma Vandati.
Jada Bharat, who had fully realized Brahman, continued, my dear King Rahul, the living entity wanders on the path of the material world, which is very difficult for him to traverse, and he accepts repeated birth and death. Being captivated by the material world, under the influence of the three modes of the material nature, Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna, and Tamo-guna, the living entity can see only the three fruits of activities under the spell of material nature. These fruits are auspicious and mixed. He thus becomes attached to religion, economic development, sense gratification, and the monistic theory of meditation, merging with the Supreme. He works very hard day and night, exactly like a merchant who enters a forest to acquire some articles to sell later for profit. However, he cannot really achieve happiness within this material world.
Okay. So the Jadabharata said, the merchant who sees only obligation to scriptural actions divided into Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, who, out of ignorance, is fixed on the path of material enjoyment, difficult to cross, and who is absorbed in the material acquisition while wandering about, comes to the forest of material life but cannot enjoy happiness. So basically, people in general, typical India, we have some concept of Vedic culture. Every house there are so many rules and regulations, so many obligations. ये करने का, वो करने का, वो करने का, वो करने का, सब है. So one feels all these things to be obligations without understanding what should be done, why they should be done. Simply they do because it is coming from generation to generation. And for what purpose? For the purpose of enjoyment. अभी और फ्यूचर में इसलिए करते हैं ना, ये करना पड़ेगा, ये करना पड़ेगा, करना पड़ेगा, तभी हैप्पीनेस मिलेगा, ऐसा करके. So then, being absorbed in material enjoyment, in order to increase one's enjoyment, one is engaged in earning more and more wealth, material acquisition. In the process of earning more and more wealth, one is bound up in the bhava atavi, the forest of material existence. So coming out of this forest is coming out of the forest of material existence. So how does he comes out? So that is the understanding. But as long as one is inside, one is performing so many activities in order to experience happiness, but is he getting happiness? No. That is not the nature of the bhava atavi. Bhava atavi is not meant to give happiness. So like that. Sarathi is well known as a wealthy merchant. Sartaha is a wealthy merchant who wanted more and more money, wanted to earn more and more money. Medini says, Sarto Vanika Samuhe Syat. Sartha means a gathering of merchants. All the jivas in this world are like merchants, interested in material acquisition, arthapara. All of us who are living in the material world are all like merchants who wanted to earn material objects for enjoyment. He sees the activities divided into Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Satvaguna as obligatory because of ignorance and the difficult to cross path of Pravritti Marga. And the Nivritti Marga, one performs all the obligations as a matter of duty. He is not worried about so much. Karenge ho jayega. But in the Pravritti Marga, they take too much tension. ये भी करने का, वो भी करने का, वो भी करने का, वो भी करने का, ये करने का, वो करने का. So it's like that. And they are also interested. ये करेगा तो वो मिलेगा, ये करेगा तो वो मिलेगा. They undertake so many endeavor to complete that activity. They are so much captivated by that performance of that activity. They have a lot of wish fulfilling desires, wish fulfilling vratas, etc. etc. Nowadays, I've been to home now. All the villages in the past months, they were all filled with Ayappa followers. Now Shiva followers, because Mahashivratri is coming up. Before Ramanavami, there will be Hanuman followers. So people have some desires. In order to fulfill that, they undertake 41 days of austere life. So it's like that. The explanation of all these terms will be given in the next chapter. However, to make understanding easier, some explanation is given here. Though the meaning of all the words will come in the next chapter, but the meanings are provided here only so that we'll understand the story properly. Yasyam ime san naradeva yasya va sartam vilupanti kunaya kambalat Gomaya yatra haranti sartikam pramattamavishya yatoranamruka. O king, in the forest, the 6 plunderers plunder the merchant who has received bad advice in the forest. Who has received bad advice? Somebody gave him advice that go this way, you will get good returns. He went that way, but there are 6 plunderers plundered him completely. They looted him, whatever he had. In that forest, the jackals enter his house by force and plunder the inattentive merchant, just as wolves steal sheep. The plunderers are the senses. Who are the 6 plunderers? 6. They constantly demand, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. They plunder wealth from the jiva, whose intelligence is like a bad chariot driver. Ku Nayakam. Though the wealth is actually meant for serving the Lord, but is used for his enjoyment. Whatever wealth one has, supposed to be meant for serving the Lord, but this traveler uses it for his own enjoyment. So in that way. The wife and sons who are like jackals plunder the merchant who is inattentive to spiritual goals and possess a treasure of food and clothing. A merchant who earned a lot of wealth by working very hard, his wife and children will enjoy the wealth by sitting idle, something like that. The wealth is supposed to be used in the service of the Supreme Lord, but this person who is not using the service of the Supreme Lord, that wealth will be enjoyed by other family members. So like that, it is mentioned. And they are compared to jackals. Avishya means they enter his heart, which is like a house. Uranam means sheep. So this is the meaning of all the personalities in the story, allegorical story. Same thing in the Puranjana story also came, na? There is Puranjana, Puranjani, Kadhyota, Avirmukhi, this, that, so many things. The meaning is given immediately in the purport. Same thing here also. Prabhutaviru Trunagulmagahvaye Katoradamshermasakerupadruta Kvachittu Gandharvapuram Pravishyati Kvachit Charu Prayolmukagraham. Afflicted by mosquitoes with harsh biting in dense bowers of shrubs, grass, and vines, he sometimes sees a city in the sky and sometimes sees ghosts moving quickly in the sky like a meteor. On the path, he is constantly afflicted by mosquito bites. And in the daytime, he sees Gandharva city, and nighttime, he sees ghosts moving quickly here and there. In his house, like a bower, abundant in material actions like dense shrubs, he is disturbed by evil men who are like the mosquitoes. The mosquitoes who are constantly biting are compared to evil people who constantly disturb a person, does not allowing to stay peacefully. The body and house are temporary like the city in the sky. He sees the city in the sky as if it were the land and permanent. Okay? Sometimes he sees pichachas who take the form of firebrands and move quickly in the sky. This refers to the seeing gold, which he regards as the most valuable thing. Gets attracted to gold and purchases gold more and more. Converts all the wealth into golden ornaments. And Gandharva city is like, he sees it as the real and permanent. But it is not permanent. It is temporary. It is just visible and disappears. So, like Ulukas. So, like that. It's basically the traveler going in the forest and is affected by all these forest animals. But a person living in samsara affected by different people who are like all these different living entities in the forest. Nivasato ya dravinatma buddhis tatastato davati bho atavyam kvachitcha kvachitcha vatyo titapa pamshudha dhumra disho na janati rajaswalaksha. Read the translation.
My dear king, the merchant on the forest part of the material world, his intelligence victimized by both wealth, relatives, and so forth, runs from one place to another in search of success. Sometimes his eyes are covered by the dust of a whirlwind, that is to say, in his lust, he is captivated by the beauty of his wife, especially during her menstrual period. Thus, his eyes are blinded, and he cannot see where to go or what he is doing.
O king, thinking that house, water, and wealth are his own, he runs here and there in the forest, sometimes covered with dirt, raised by a whirlwind, his eyes blinded by dust. He does not know the directions. Dishana Janati. Thinking that house and wealth are his own, he runs here and there. Tata tata. He becomes covered by the impulses of lust because of woman. This is comparable to being covered by dirt raised by a whirlwind. So when the eyes are covered by the whirlwind, one does not know where to go. When a person is affected by lust, one does not know where to go in one spiritual path. So like that. Not only lust, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Madamo, Masar, any of the six anarthas affect us. One does not know where to go ahead. So in that way. His eyes blinded by lust. He does not know that the devatas of the directions are witness to his actions. The Ashtadikpalakas are actually witnessing all our activity that we perform. One forgets that. Being ignorant of that, one starts doing so many activities. So like that. Adrishya Jilli Swanakarma Shula Uluka Vagbir Vetitantaratma Apunya Vrikshan Shrayate Shudhardito Marichito Yani Abhidhavati Kochit. When his mind is disturbed by the sounds of owls and the piercing cries of invisible crickets, afflicted by hunger, he takes shelter of impious trees and sometimes runs after a mirage of water. पानी के भूखे थे इधर उधर चलते रहते. His ears are pierced by the sharp language of detested speakers he does not see. This is like the sound of crickets. Matlab people are surrounded nearby us always makes rumors, criticisms upon us. They are like cricket sound. We don't know where from cricket sound. Below the table, the cricket will be there and it makes sound. रात भर sound करते रहते. We don't understand, but it gets irritating. Similarly, people in this world, they always spread false rumors about us, criticism, false rumors, etc. They are like the cricket sounds. His mind is afflicted by the words of distracted speakers. He can see who are like the owls. The owls also make a lot of itching sound. That is like the sounds of the neighbors who make a lot of noise always. Some people, those who spread rumors, we don't know who are the spreading rumors. But those who are shouting loudly, we know. So they are compared to owls and crickets in that way. He goes to sinful people who are like the impious trees to beg. उनको कुछ जरूरत पड़ेगा तो पापी लोगों के पास जाते हैं. So by their mercy only, he starts living. Even the shade or shelter of such persons is a cause of sin. Sometimes he begs from uncharitable person who gives nothing. They are merging in with Mirage. He begs from uncharitable persons who give nothing. They are like the mirage. We're looking at the mirage and searching after mirage for water. Does anybody get water? Same way, asking help from uncharitable people also does not give anything. So, like that. Vachid vitoya sarito viyati parasparam chalasate niranda asadhyadavam kvachidagnitapo nirvidyate kvacha ekshairatasu. Sometimes he jumps in waterless rivers. Unable to tolerate the heat in the forest, he wants to take bath. He jumps from the bank of the river, but there is no water. Breaks his legs. And sometimes without food, he desires food from relatives. उनके पास food नहीं रहता है. He wants something from others. Sometimes encountering a forest fire, he becomes burnt by the fire. And when his wealth is stolen by yakshas, he falls into despair. Means he becomes immediately unhappy by breaking his limbs when he jumps into a waterless river, but gets no water or food. This means he goes to atheists who give misery in this and in the next world. Going to atheists is like jumping into waterless river for water. One only breaks the legs. One does not get water. Same way, approaching atheists is only miserable in this life also, in the next life also, from the spiritual point of view. Approaching atheists, what they will say? Hey, enjoy, drink wine, eat meat, like that they say. That is miserable in this life also, punishable in the next life. Without food, he desires it from others. one himself does not earn money, but depending on others, he goes on for food. Basically, uh, taking shelter of atheists. Atheists are also interested in exploiting. They never guide one to spiritual activities. Instead, they engage one in sinful activities. By sinful activities, one loses whatever wealth one has. So, in order to earn wealth, he approaches illegal means. As a result, at the end, one does not have any food. Then, one wants to steal the food from others. So, like that. He comes to a house which gives suffering like a forest fire. So, desiring food, he goes to somebody's house. They only speak ill words. They never give food. So, in that way, it's like forest fire. He becomes despondent, burned by the fire of lamentation. When one does not get food, one is lamenting. He whose wealth dear like life has been stolen by kings who are like the Yakshas and Rakshasas, becomes despondent thinking, how unfortunate I was without wealth. So it's like that. So here Prabhupada goes into more details in the Prabhupada. King's word come na. The politicians are putting lot of taxes. This tax, that tax, that tax. Lot of money is collected in the form of taxes. So that is understanding. Shure ritasva kvacha nirvinna cheta Sochan Vimuyan Upayati Kashmalam Kwachicha Gandharva Puram Pravishta Pramodate Nirvratavan Muhurtam. Please read the translation.
Sometimes when defeated or plundered by a superior, powerful legend, living entity loses all his possessions. He then becomes very morose and lamenting their loss. He sometimes becomes unconscious. Sometimes he imagines a great palatial city in which he desires to live happily with his family members and teachers. He thinks himself fully satisfied if this is possible. But such so-called happiness continues only for a moment.
Shure Hritasva Kvacha Nirvinna Cheta means with his possession stolen by enemies, having taken shelter of atheists, they will make him perform all the sinful activities, all wealth is gone. With his possession stolen by enemies, sometimes with a depressed heart and lamentation, in great bewilderment, he will fall into great bewilderment. Sometimes entering an imaginary city, Gandharva city, he enjoys for a moment as if fully satisfied. Dreams. Having his desires fulfilled in terms of sons, wife, wealth, and power is like entering an imaginary Gandharva city. Entering into Gandharva city and experiencing enjoyment for some time is like marrying, begetting children, and taking care of them. But eventually, when they are growing, they demand more and more money, more and more money. All one's hard earnings will be gone in that. So like that. Chalan kvachit kantaka sakarangrir nagarurukshur vimanai vaste pade pade pyayan pade pade byantarvarnitnardidam kutumbika kutumbyai vaijanaya. Please read the translation.
Sometimes a merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns of the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger. And due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members.
His feet becomes pierced by thorns, and he wanders about. Wanting to climb a hill, he becomes disappointed step by step. Pained by the fire of decision, living with his family, he becomes angry at his family members. Desiring to climb a high mountain means desiring fame by marrying his daughters and sons to a aristocratic family members. Desiring to do this, he becomes depressed, thinking, how can I accomplish this? It is very difficult to climb a mountain. Similarly, very difficult to complete the duties in relation to the marriages of children. His feet becomes cut by thorns because he had no shoes. So in that way, how can I accomplish this? His feet becomes hmm, his feet becomes cut by thorns because he has no shoes. This indicates that he becomes defeated by obstacles because he has no assistance. While walking in the forest, there could be so many thorns because he has no chapel. The thorn will be pricking again and again. Similarly, when we are walking on our own in this world, we get through so many obstacles because we don't have a counselor who can guide us in the spiritual path. So that way. The fire within is the fire of digestion. Because when the fire of digestion increases, there is hunger. When hunger is not satisfied, one becomes angry with the family members and one becomes angry with one and all. Hungry के समय कुछ बोलेगा तो no one will tolerate. One will shout a lot. That is that's how it is intolerable. क्वचिन्निकीर्णो जगराहिनो जनो नावीति किञ्चिद्विपिने पविद्धा दष्टस्मसेते क्वच दण्डचूके अंधोन्धकापि अंधोन्धकूपी पतितस्तमिस्रे. Sometimes he is followed by a python. Kvachit nigirno ajagara ahina. Ahi means snake. Ajagara ahina means the python. Sometimes he is followed by a python and loses consciousness. Sometimes not woken up by friends. He is bitten by a snake in the forest while he sleeps. Sometimes in blindness, he falls into a dark blind well. Three things are there. Sometimes he is swallowed by a python, sometimes he is bitten by a snake, sometimes he falls into deep dark well. Swallowed by a python means he goes to sleep. Not woken up by friends. He is afflicted by a civil person shackles. So in that way. Swallowed by python means he goes to sleep. He wastes time in deep sleep. And not woken up by friends. He is afflicted by evil persons like snakes. Not woken up by friends means not woken up to spiritual activities. What was that? Yanisha Sarvabhutani Tasyam Jagartik Samyami. Hmm. So that one. Blind without discrimination. He falls into illusion. Like a blind well covered by darkness, filled with misery. So blind without discrimination, one falls into illusion, like a blind well. While walking, there could be some blind well, one falls into blind well without understanding properly. Similarly, without proper discrimination, we fall into illusion. Without understanding what is what, one can fall into illusion in the material existence. Karhi smachit kshudra rasan vichinnam tanmakshika bervetito vimana tatratikrichat pratilabdamano balad vilumpanti artatam tatoni. Read the translation.
Sometimes, in order to have a little insignificance as environment, One searches after divorced women. Changes happen, one is insulted and chastised by the woman's kinsman. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee.
Prabhupada gets into strong descriptions. Sometimes searching for a little honey, he is bitten by bees, honeybees. Disgraced, he finally obtains it with great difficulty, but by force, others steal it from him. Here, honey is the sex pleasure, like that Prabhupada compares.
So, within the translation, Prabhupada actually
Put in the purport. The insignificant honey is another person's wife. He suffers, disgraced by the husband and brothers like bees biting. Looking for honey means looking for other man's wife. Bitten by honey means beaten by the woman's husband and one's own family, other family members. They will criticize, disgrace, shout at him, or beat also sometimes. So all that. If by great effort, by spending a lot of money, he obtains the woman and enjoys her, someone else steal her later on. Someone else who has more money, she will go after him. So there is no guarantee. Then again he spends money to get another woman and sometimes steals her. So like that. It goes on, it keeps going on. More money to more anxiety. क्वचित्ततीतातपवातवर्षा प्रतिक्रियं कर्तुमनीश आस्ते क्वचिन्मितो विपणन् यच्च किञ्चित् विद्वेषमर्चन्ति उत वीतसाध्यात्. Sometimes he is unable to counteract the cold, heat, wind, and rain. Sometimes, while transacting business with others, he gains their enmity because of cheating them for wealth. It's like that. Sometimes, while transacting business with others, he gains their enmity because of cheating them for wealth. So it's common thing happening around. While buying and selling because of cheating for money, he develops enemies. One develops enemies in buying and selling. If one wants to cheat others, one obviously will develop enmity with others. So like that. क्वचित् क्वचित् कीनदनस्तु तस्मिन् शय्यासनस्थानविहारहीना याचन् पराड् अप्रतिलब्धकामा पराक्यदृष्टे लभते avamanim. Here he says that in that forest, devoid of wealth, without bed, without chair, without house or amusement, he sometimes begs from others. Unsatisfied in his desires, desiring the wealth of others, he becomes disgraced. Disgraced means he takes on to illegal means. So people criticize and scold and shout and beat whenever he is found guilty. Because he does not get enough from begging from others, he desires others' wealth and is consequently disrespected by others. So it's like that. Anyonya vitta vetisanga vriddha vairānubandho vivahan. Okay. Anyonya vitta vetisanga vriddha వైరానుబంధో వివహన్మితశ్చ అద్వన్నముష్మిన్నురుకృచ్రవిత్త బాధోపసర్గైర్విహరన్ విపన్న. Living with increased enmity because of business transactions for wealth. He marries. Wandering on the path, he almost dies because of the great difficulties, loss of wealth, and the sickness that he encounters. So many difficulties on the path. He gains increased enmity with others by transaction for wealth in which each party desires to gain, but still he marries among such persons. Nowadays, marriage means a big thing. Wandering on the path of material existence, he almost dies because of great suffering, loss of money, and sickness. So it's like that. All these constantly torment one in the life. Tamstan vipannan sahitatra tatra vihaya jatam parigriya sarta avartan deva avartatedyapि na kaschit atra veeradvanaparamupayati yogam. Read the translation.
My dear king, on the forest path of material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death, he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way, he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this, even up to the moment of death.
See, this is an interesting thing. O king, giving up all those who have died and accepting those who are born, he wanders about in the forest. Even then, the merchant does not take to the methods of crossing material life. This is a normal course. As a person after marriage begets children and parents die. After parents die, he forgets about them and develops attachment to the children. So like that life goes on. But such person never inquires why somebody is dying, why somebody is born. What makes somebody die? What makes somebody born? What happens after death? What happened before birth? Such kind of inquiry no one makes. So such kind of people, it is very difficult for them to cross the ocean of material existence. So in that way, giving up the dead parents, he accepts those who are born, the children. He wanders about, but until today, does not go toward the Lord. Today morning we were doing D&D. In the tape, Prabhupada was saying that this is a Kimacharyam Param, that Yaksha asked Yudhishthira Maharaj, what is the most astonishing thing? Yudhishthira said that Ahni Ahini Bhutani Gachantiha Yamalayam. Every day in, day out, we see many people dying. People see many people dying and going to Yamalayam, abode of Yamaraj. But Shesha Stavaram Ichanti. But all the remaining people have a desire that we are eternal here. We remain here for the rest of eternity. Remaining people never think that one day I will also die and I will also go to Himalaya. That one never thinks like that. All others makes plans in such a way that they are going to stay here eternally. Kimacharya Mataparam. What more asking more than this? So like that. That is the answer. Same thing here also. Forgetting the deceased parents, developing attachment to the newborn children, one moves on in the life, but does not inquire what is beyond birth and death. So in that way. No one among the merchants attains the method of crossing the forest, that is bhakti or jnana. No one inquires about how to practice jnana, how to practice bhakti. No one is interested in that. So in that way. Manasvino nirjita diggajendra mameti sarve bhuvi baddha vaira मृदेशैरन्नतु तद्व्रजन्ति यन्नष्टदण्डो गतवैरोधीयति. Warriors who have conquered even the elephants of the directions, the Diggajas, but things in terms of mind, surrounded by their enemies, all fall dead on the battlefield. They do not attain the abode attained by those. But things in terms of mind, surrounded by their enemies, all fall dead on the battlefield. They do not attain the abode attained by those who have renounced all material attachments and have no enemies. Gata Vairo. Nyasta Dando. The devotees, without having any enemies, without being attached to anything in the material world, will go back home back to Godhead. But the merchant here, who sometimes also becomes a warrior, a king, trying to conquer other kingdoms, develops enmity with all the other kings, and being in the middle, developing, keeping all the enemies in the surrounding around him, he thinks that I am the king, I am the king, I am. This is mine, this kingdom is mine. Constant battles. Great warriors conquer even the elephants of the direction situated far away, but they cannot conquer the 11 senses, which are close enemies. One may go conquer big warriors all the way up to 8 elephants, but one does not conquer the closest enemies, the 11 senses, the 5 jnanendriyas, 5 karmendriyas, and the mind. This is their courage, but it is not spiritual. Things in terms of mind, thinking in terms of mind, they are all die on the battlefield. So in that way. This is their courage, but it is not spiritual. Thinking in terms of mind, they all die in the battlefield. All the kings think that this kingdom is mine, 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 mine. They come together and fight. They kill each other. That is what will happen at the end. Spiritual courage is then described. Real courage is having no enmity and giving up all material attachment. Real courage means no enmity with anybody and giving up attachment to things of this material world. That is the real courage one should have. प्रसज्जति क्वापि लटाबुजाश्रय तदाश्रयाव्यक्तपदद्विजस्पृहा क्वचित् कदाचिद्दरिचक्रतस्तृशन् सख्यं विदत्ते बककङ्कगृद्धै. Here he says that sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers, desiring to hear the chirping of the birds in those creepers. Being afraid of group of lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Meaning is, again the forest of material life is described. He takes shelter of the happiness of touch of the arms of women. The creepers are compared to the soft arms of the woman. He desires to hear the birds which cannot be heard because they are sleeping in the creepers. This refers to the inaudible words of the woman while embracing the man. Dvija refers to the children born from them. He desires to see and touch them. So it's like that. So basically, the people in this world are attached to have the association of the women and children. So in that way. Pretenders say, how will you become free from material life? Hearing these words by chance, he becomes afraid of the wheel of time, which is like a group of lions. To alleviate his fear, he eagerly accepts the words of the cheaters. Easily you can cross the ocean of suffering. Sometimes book distributors will come and shout, read Bhagavad Gita, solution for getting out of the material world. He becomes afraid. So he will go to fast gurus. They'll say something, and if I tries to follow something, it is very easy. Ah, ये थोड़ा करो बस, आप निकल जाएंगे. ये मंत्र ले लो, ये ले लो, वो ले लो, ये निकल जाएगा. So like that, one gets cheated in this material world. He makes friends with the cheaters who are like cranes. They are cheaters, unintelligent, and cruel. So it's like that. This is what happens in the material world. Tervanchitoham sakulam समाविशन् आरोच्यं शीलम् उपैति वानरम् तज्जातिराशेन सुनिर्वृतेन्द्रिया परस्परोद्वीक्षण विस्मृतावधि. Cheated by cranes, he contacts a group of sands, but not satisfied with their behavior, approaches some monkeys. He senses joyful because of the pleasure arising from them. He gazes at their faces and forgets about death. It means understanding that they give no results, following the false gurus. He goes to a group of Brahmanas. They are compared to Hamsas, but is not satisfied with their rules for atonement and taking the sacred thread again. When he goes to Brahmanas, Brahmanas prescribe so many atonements. They say, do this, but he was not happy with that. Not satisfied, then he goes to some pretenders, almost Shudras, with fallen conduct. Satisfied with unrestricted association with women, eating and drinking, meat eating and drinking wine, by looking at their faces, he forgets that death is approaching. Like that, is jumping from one person to other person, and here no success, like that. That ultimately he lands in the hands of prostitutes. So something like that. And in their embrace, he forgets that death is approaching him nearby. So in that way. द्रुमेशुरं शन सुतदारवस्तलो व्यवायदीनो विवशस्वबन्धने क्वचित् प्रमादाद् गिरिकन्दरे पटन् वल्लिं गृहीत्वा गजभीत आस्थिता. Enjoying the trees, affectionate to sons and wife, miserable because of sex life, bound up there and helpless, he sometimes out of inattention falls into a mountain cave, holding onto a creeper, afraid of an elephant, he remains dangling there. He enjoys in the house places of pleasure. Basically, as a continuation in the previous verse, he enjoys in the prostitute places for some time. Desiring sex life, he is kicked by the woman. He is bound up helplessly in that forest and cannot escape, but continues to wander in the forest from one place to other place, moving from one place to other place, seeking for happiness. Becoming terribly sick, like falling into a mountain cave, he fears death compared to an elephant. Death is compared to an elephant, falling into a cave is compared to falling sick. He remains alive by the support of his karmas, like a vine holding him up. But since he performed so many karmas in the past, they kind of maintain him. Like while falling into the deep dark well, he holds onto veins. So like that. Finally, this is the last verse of that particular story. Ata katanche savimukta apadha punasya sartam pravishanti arindama advan namushmin ajaya nivishto Brahman janodyapi na veda kaschana. Read the translation.
O killer of enemies, Maharaj Jahanabal, if the conditions show, somehow or other gets out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life, for that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material value, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest in the life of contact.
Hmm. Now he says, finally, one should do. O king, killer of the enemies, Arindama. Somehow he becomes free from danger and again begins to enjoy. If I fell sick, na, he was afraid of death. But sometimes, somehow because of some medicine, he becomes cured. Then again looks for more enjoyment. Absorbed in the path by ignorance, a person wanders about till death and does not understand anything. Naveda Kashana does not understand where one is going. Again, he enjoys Pravruti Marga. He does not know the Supreme Lord. That is what will happen in the forest of material enjoyment, material world. One does not inquire about the Atma or Paramatma, and hence one is bound in the cycle of repeated birth and death. One goes life after life in this material existence only. Therefore, one should ride the horse of detachment and cut the allurements with the weapon of knowledge and detachment. So, like that. That's what he will tell the king now. Finally, he says that this is the final instruction to the Rahugana. Rahuganatvam apiyadvanosya sanyastadandakritabhutamitra asajjitatma harisevayasitam jnanasimadaya tarati param. Now, finally, Bharata Brahmana says that, O King Rahugana, you are also absorbed in material existence like the merchant, making friends with all beings, renouncing the punishment that the king gives to others, making friends with all beings, renouncing the punishment that the king gives to the miscreants, taking the sword of knowledge that has been sharpened by devotional service to Lord, with mind detached from material enjoyment, cross over the material existence. The king normally has the sword, the metal sword, to fight with the enemies and punish them. Instead of that, he's telling that make friends with everyone, don't keep any enemies, and renounce the mentality of punishing the subjects. Instead, take the sword of knowledge, which has been sharpened by the devotional service unto Lord Krishna. Harisevaya Sitam. Sitam means sharpened. How? By Hariseva. With mind detached from material enjoyment. Then cross over the material existence. This is the actual solution. How to cross over the material existence is by this. Making friends with all beings. Suhruda Sarva Bhutanam. Then taking the sword of knowledge or renouncing one's worldly duties for king. King is punishing the miscreants, but for anyone, Sarvadharman Parityaja, and taking the sword of knowledge sharpened by devotional service and detachment from the material enjoyment, one will cross over the material existence. This is the final instruction, the final essence of the allegorical story of forest of material engineering. Bhavatavi. So it's like that. Any questions? Could follow in dream? Huh? लगता है प्रसाद ज्यादा हो गए. We'll just do 1-2 verses. Rahugana expresses his gratitude. Very nice. Then we will close for today. Rajo Vacha Aho Nrujanma Kila Janma Shobhanam Kim Janma Besto Aparair Apyamushmin Nayed Nayed Drishikshesha Yashas Kritatmanam Mahatmanam Va Prachura Samagama. Read the translation.
King Rahugana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all. Even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod? The heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there is no possibility of associating with deities.
The king said, human birth is the most splendid. Aho, Nrujanma Kila Janma Shobhanam. Human birth is the best among all births. It is there in the Bhagavatam 11th canto comes. Rudeha Madhyam Sulabham Sudurlabham Plavam Sukalpam Gurukarna Dharam Maya Nukulena Nabasutaritam Puman Vabdin Nataret Sa Atmaha. Labdva Sudurlabhamidam Paujambavante Manushamartamapiha Manitya Dira Turnam Yateta Napate Tanumurti Avat Nishreyasaya Vishaya Kalu Sarvadasya. So, like that, many places the glories of human body is mentioned. Because the human body is most suitable to practice bhakti and go back home back to God in compared to the bodies of devatas, rishis, and animals, etc. etc. Human birth is most splendid because their lifespan is very long. They have to perform sadhana for a long time. Human lifespan is small. And they have a lot of responsibilities. Humans don't have so much responsibilities. So in that one. What use is any other birth in which there is no abundant, intimate association of great devotees, whose whole being is composed of glorification of the Lord? Why human birth is special? Because in human birth one can have the association of devotees and one can hear Krishna Katha, speak Krishna Katha. That makes it special, according to Rahuguna. How have I suddenly become so fortunate? With astonishment, he wonders. Then King speaks this verse. Among all births, human life is splendid in this astonishing world. There is nothing better in the next life in Swarga. What is the use of those births as devatas in which there is no association with great devotees, whose souls, whose efforts, whose intelligence, whose mind, and whose bodies are made only of glorification of the Lord, who engages their senses in the service of the Supreme Lord? The devotee souls, devotees' efforts, devotees' intelligence, devotees' mind, devotees' bodies are all made up of glorification of the Lord, who engages their senses. Matlab, devotees engage everything in the service of the Supreme Lord. Nothing else here and there. Nai adbhutam tva charanabjarenubir hatam haso bhaktiradoksha jemale Mahurtikadyasya samagamacha me Dustarkamolopahato viveka. He says that it is not astonishing, nai adbhutam, that all my sins have been destroyed by the dust of your lotus feet. And that pure bhakti to the Supreme Lord has arisen in my heart by a moment's association with you, with great devotees like you. My lack of discrimination, the root of my false arguments, has been destroyed completely. I don't know what good fortune I have done, but by your causeless mercy, you have given your association to me, by which I became the most fortunate. This is possible to me because I have been born in the human form. That's why human form is great. So like that. You mentioned intimate association. Does that mean that a little association is useless? No, not like that. I spoke like that out of great enthusiasm. Just by obtaining the dust from your lotus feet, I have attained pure bhakti, which is rare even for Brahma or Indra. So like that. He glorifies. But this is not astonishing. What is astonishing is that if just by a moment's association my mind corrupted by little knowledge and filled with bad logic becomes favorable to bhakti, how can one describe the greatness of prolonged association with great devotees like you? Who can estimate the good fortune of being in the association of great devotees like you? My statement shows my enthusiasm. Kindly understand my statements. And finally, he says that Namo Mahadbhyostu Namo Shishubhyo Namo Yuvabhyo Namo Vat Avatubhya He Brahmanagam Avaduta Lingas Charanti Tebhya Shivamas Rajnam. He says that I made a mistake considering you as a ordinary human, but you turned up to be a great devotee. I don't know where the great devotees are here. I don't know whom I have offended. For all, I beg forgiveness from everyone. He said that I offer respects to the great devotees. Namo Mahatbhyo. To the babies, Namo Shishibhyo. To all the babies who eventually become great devotees. Now only I offer offenses. To the youth who will become your devotees. To the young boys, I offer respect to the Brahmanas who wander the earth in the dress of Avadutas. May there be auspiciousness for the kings. Like me, no other king should make an offense. Let there be auspiciousness for all the kings, unto whom the Brahmanas teach about bhakti. If you carrying palanquin had not enlightened me, what discrimination would such an offender attain? In fear, the king offers respects. I offer respects even unto the small Brahmana boys, since such children are inclined to play. Their greatness is not evident. However, to even such person he offers respects, because eventually they become devotees. Now only let me offer. By requesting good fortune for kings, he indicates that possibly other kings have offended their devotees. So in either case, on behalf of other kings also, I am offering respects to all the great souls, so that the great souls can forgive them, just like Brahmana Bharata forgive me. So like that. Let there be auspicious for everyone, one and all. So it is like that. Thus, story ended. The conversation between Brahmana Bharata and King Rahogana completed. Any questions? You able to follow the discussion that went through for so many chapters? Little technical, but ultimately he is trying to imbibe that concept of renunciation in the heart of Rahoguna forcefully. That's why he spoke very harshly, very strongly.
So we then took one plus
Then we will go to Vanaprasad and then we will do that.
Bharat Maharaj story is not Bharat Maharaj story. What happened to Bharat Maharaj
After this, he will go back home back to Kadad. Still some more verses are there, we'll see what happens to him. So our chapter is not completed. Some more verses are there. That time we'll see what happened to him. Anyway, now you see, whatever he did as Bharata, King Bharata, that is still there. That stock is not gone anywhere. So now anyway, is completely touched. He is living just to complete the remaining things. He will go back home back to Kadad. Eventually. Okay. So we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow